You're listening to episode 812 of the Father Bills podcast. Welcome back. This week's episode is entitled Let Go, given on the 32nd Sunday in Ordinary Time, 2021. On Thursday, I got home and I turned on the TV and I saw that the World Series was on. I haven't been following it, but I thought how lucky I had been to catch the last part of the World Series when I was just kind of surfing around. I don't watch TV much, but this is one of those occasions. The Braves are up 3-2 against the Astros. The score was 7-0 in the ninth inning, and obviously we knew who was going to win, unless something tragic or unexpected happened. So I thought I'd stick around and just see what happens. And besides, it's the end of the World Series. I haven't been watching it. At least I get the last part, right? So the last inning comes to a conclusion. I think I'm going to text a parishioner that I know that has been kind of bantering with me about the World Series. So here's the context. Here's the text. Me. It looks like the Atlanta Braves are going to win the World Series, doesn't it? The response, they did it 2 days ago. Me, what? I'm watching a rerun? Response, I guess you are. Welcome to the party. A little late. Me, I guess that confirms that I am not following baseball well. Response, that's okay, Father. So I'm like, what? How could this be? I was confused. So I had to go on ESPN and just check the score to make sure, what's the news events. And it really wasn't anywhere. I'm like, it's the World Series. It should, They should have had it on here. And I had to look a little harder because it really was 2 days ago. I was watching a rerun, thinking it was real. I felt silly. Reality came and slapped me in the face, and I had to just let go and accept that I was wrong. And there was no way to deny it. I mean, I couldn't recreate history and the whole bit. I don't have time travel abilities. So despite my gaffe, though, I took it in humor, and then I thought I asked for permission to allow me to share with my text conversation with this person. But I was just thinking, boy, the Lord has a sense of humor, and I'm so glad he sustains me because, we make a lot of mistakes in our world, and, we sometimes really get down on ourselves. I think we've all made some false assumptions somewhere. We've all been obstinate somewhere and needed correction in some way. We've all been struggling sometimes to find the facts out. There's so much noise, there's so much this is the truth. So many voices, it's hard to determine what is the truth. Our fallen nature and our egos and pride are in the way. Our fear gets in the way. And what it does is it can either propagate a continuing lie or conspiracy, or we are ignorant to the truth. Indeed, all these issues befall us, myself included, and they get in the way to a more abundant life with Jesus and with others. In some cases, the fear and pride is so great that we become pretenders in the faith, not wanting anyone to know that what's really going on inside of us and putting on a show instead, putting up fronts and false confidence, making it look like we're on top of things, but attacking anyone that would dare challenge us. Such struggles cause us immediate distress, isolation, and more suffering. But the good news is that the Lord wants to heal us. He wants us to let go of all those things, to die to ourselves so that we may live in the freedom of God's children. Yes, children. The deepest truth about who we are, you and I, We are a son or a daughter of a beloved God. Now that may sound trite, but that may be just because we're pride-filled and we are still obstinate to the truth. This fundamental truth, the orientation of our reality is I am a son and you may be a son or a daughter of God. And once we truly allow that truth to sink in, only then can we truly be humble and live the truth and be faithful. For only recognizing that God is great and we're his creation and not the other way around, do we finally come into an orientation that is life-giving. And we will no longer be afraid to give of ourselves. Now, I'm part of what's called the Parish leadership team. I formed a group of people, and the goal behind some of this is to be humble and transparent. And I can tell you that it's been rough, it's been difficult. We have shared difficult things with each other, but it's continued to bond ourselves in walking in the faith. And I want to encourage all of you to consider the same. Are we being honest, humble, and transparent in our relationships? Because otherwise we're just pretenders. And I say this not because I've got it all together. I say this because I continue to be in need. So that brings me to another question. Because God loves us, where is he then calling you to give of yourselves? Where is he calling you, even though you may recoil when he has asked you? What has he said? Where is he wanting you to be or to be? But maybe in that question you've answered it with, I'm not good enough. I can't do that. I mean, that? No way. I can't do, no way. I'll make a fool of myself. And so we're scared. And we live in fear. And such is the case for many, if not all of us, somewhere in our lives. We as a parish are always in need of parishioners to step forward, but I cannot tell you how many times I've asked, and I'm like, oh, I can't do that. Several years ago in our Spanish Mass, no lector showed up, none. So I'm like, okay, here we go. So I got up there and then sat down in the chair after the collect prayer. I'm like, and by the way, is there anybody here that like to read the reading? Because there are no lectors today. And everybody looked at each other. And a woman stood up out of the crowd, not a lector, not a reader, and came up and read and knocked it out of the park. Home run, World Series. But I've gone back to her many times since. You've done an awesome job. You should be a reader. Would you please be a reader? It has been 8 years, and I've come up bubkus on this. I'm going to continue to ask. She's not here in this community, but I will continue to ask. But my question is, what is God asking you? Because we have needs in all of our ministries. The prime ones are here at Mass. As a reader, a Eucharistic minister, musicians, altar servers. See, we're all called to then help participate in our family of our parish. Because if you don't do it, who will? Oh, somebody else will. Not so. I stand here before you to tell you we no longer have a youth ministry. That's sad. We used to have a youth minister, but then we also used to have volunteers. And now we have none. Is God calling someone from us? What's going on? I do not know. I do not know where it's going. But I've never been in this situation where we had no youth ministry. We started up confirmation. We have one teen. One. He's going to move on to the next year. Wait this year, go next year. Hopefully we'll have teens next year. What has happened? We could blame a lot of things. We could blame COVID. We could blame secularism. We could blame families that aren't bringing their kids to church. We could blame our schools. We could blame our culture. We could blame bad preaching. We could blame the priest shortage. We could blame the priest scandal. We could go on and on. We could blame politics. We could go on blaming all night long. But it doesn't overshadow the one thing. God is calling us not to be pew potatoes, but to be active in our parish. I want you to think about this. 2 widows in the scriptures today came before us, as we heard, desperate. In fact, the prophet asked of this one widow to make food for him, and she was near death herself. I'm going to make this meal, and that's it, and I'm going to go on. I'm going to leave. I'm going to die. But she trusted the prophet because God spoke through him, and it didn't happen. She got over and walked through her fears. She was clear with God through the prophet, hey, this is the deal. Are you kidding me? Right? But she went ahead and did it, despite all of the potential problems, despite the fact that it would end everything if she got herself short in food. And then we move to the other widow in the gospel who, after following a lot of folks that had wealth, she had only 2 coins. This story is called the widow's mite. A mite, by the way, is no bigger than my fingernail. It's a tiny little coin. And that's all she could. She gave out of her sustenance, not her excess. These 2 people, these widows, they didn't do much, but they did do something. And we are now here, thousands of years later, remembering them for their courage, faith, and action. I hope it inspires us and challenges us. It does me. And so the church has set before us these 2 as models of faith and courage. And we need more models of faith like them. We need to build up parents that can be models, and teachers that can be models, parishioners, grandparents. We need other teens to be models for other teens. In this light, the church is asking us then to think about what God is doing to call each one of us. And in particular this weekend, to ponder on vocations to the ordained life, that is the diaconate, the priesthood, and episcopacy, but also the consecrated life, that is that of a religious brother and sisters, such as the Benedictines, Franciscans, and Carmelites, just for example. All of these are vocations, a call from God. And they are an important part of the life of a church. And we know how important they are to us. Some parishes no longer have a resident priest. Some priests have 3 to 5 parishes they need to shepherd. Some have 20. Some have 30. How can that be? These are talked to, remember Father Dominic, our priest that was from Uganda. He was the only priest for miles, and people walked hours to get to a central location so that he can give him the Eucharist, so that those lay ministers would walk all the way back to their villages to give them Eucharist, because there was a lack of priests. It's interesting because in that deprivation at this time, Africa itself is booming with Catholics. It's one of the largest places of growth for our faith. Isn't that interesting? So there's a lot of factors afoot. I'm not going to pretend that I know them all. I mean, the cultural shifts that have happened just in youth ministry has had my head spinning. I'm like, whoa, our teens are incredible and they're precious to us. And we've never, as adults, had to deal with what they're dealing with. We need to pray for them and lift them up. But no matter what's going on, those things are not to deter us from our calling. What we need is courage. We need to let go of our fears. And we need to answer the call. Even though it may be, are you serious? Me? I don't think so. And just trust that while you may not have the ability to do something, God may very well equip you to do it. But he's looking for a yes first. I used to stink as a reader. When I was a lay person over at Christ the King Parish, when I was a teacher at high school, as a teacher in high school, I talk a lot. Any teacher does, right? In front of people. But then I get really nervous in front of everybody at church. And I'd stutter over my words. And I'd bumble. And I'd be shaking in my shoes. I thought, I really do stink, but I'll keep trying. And then I thought, I'll pick up the guitar. And I will. Stunk at that too, but I was in the choir nonetheless. And as I started to discern more clearly a vocation to the priesthood, I'm like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. Look at all this. You really want me to do that? Now, I've been feeling that from high school, but now I'm a teacher, a high school teacher. And in fact, the last place I went and taught was Tigard High School, my alma mater. So many things lined up in that year. I'm like, okay, I give up. I even went to my pastor, who was the vocation director. He was expecting to see me. I'd called ahead, and he said he's looking to see me say something like this: Father John, I'm getting married. But that's not what he heard. He was stunned when I said, okay, Father John, I give up. I've been avoiding this, trying everything else. And he knows it because he was a deacon at that parish that he's now a priest. And I was a teen at that parish. I went to Corvallis at Oregon State, and guess who was the parish priest there? And then I moved to Central Catholic, and guess who was at the vocation director nearby? And then he got moved to the parish back again, and guess who got a job at Tigard High School and moved next door? Yeah, that's me. He was stalking me. But deep down inside, there was a voice. And I needed to answer that voice. And I was lifted up every time I made one little gesture towards that okay or that yes. I had little to offer. I'm average. In fact, I was cleaning the house the other day, and I have my psychological reports, which I was not supposed to have, which I'm like, I had them. I'm average. So there. Take that. I'm not exceptional in any way. Are you sure you want me? Well, I don't seem to stumble as much when I read. Now, granted, I'm reading the gospel, and by the way, that's a lot easier than reading the epistles of Paul, which are like a lot of run-on sentences. He'd get an F in English. But God has done something miraculous. And so he did with those widows. Who are we to think we're that small and incapable? God knows what he's done with you, and he's given each of us gifts. Do not be afraid. Let go of whatever's in your way. Maybe it's sin. Go to confession. Maybe it's a relationship. Try to repair it or let go. Whatever it is. Self-esteem. Maybe you're struggling with that. Remember, God does not make junk, and he's given each of us gifts. In some way, the gospel then, here today, it's been domesticated to the point where it's not good news. It's just some news. And it's not very enticing to get involved. So that's nice. Jesus died for my sins and heaven's available. That's nice. That's kind of neato. Oh, right. I want to go watch that football game. We're all excited. See, what we need to realize is Jesus is not offering us just some good news, but the greatest news of all history. Who cares who wins the World Series, even if it's 2 days late? Nothing is compared to what Christ has done and offers each one of us. No matter what we're doing, there is joy to be received through him. No matter what's going on. We're all going through difficult times. But Christ has not stopped calling us. From within this church, there may be vocations to the religious life and priesthood. Are we helping or are we hindering? I have to ask that of myself. What kind of example am I giving? But what example are you giving? Do you know a young person, a young man or a woman? Have you encouraged them? Have you ever thought about being a sister or a nun or a boy? Have you ever thought being a brother or a priest or a deacon? Have you thought of that? You might be good. I remember those voices of my parishioners, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I gotta go. But it kept coming. See, we need to know that this good news has been given to us to proclaim, because the opposite is horrific, not just bad, not, oh, there's hell, bummer. No, God's love has conquered sin and death. Praise God that he has conquered these things and has opened the way for us to follow him to his Father in heaven. It is only through him that this is possible. May we then reevaluate our relationships and reevaluate our relationship with Jesus and our place in the church, his church. May we let go of whatever holds us bound or captive. Let's pray for more men and women to heroically respond to the call of ministry here in the parish, but of ordained ministry and religious life as well. May we all be transformed by the great news of Christ, who loves you perfectly, always and steady. And let us go then out as we do today, empowered by the Eucharist, to go and share that with others. For if we don't do it, who will?
Thank you again for listening to this episode of the Father Bill's podcast. If you have any questions or comments, go to my website, fatherbill.org. And there you can email me directly from the first page there. And you can look at what's going on Facebook and Twitter. And I have a few other social media accounts, but they're not as common. At least I don't use them very much. You can check them out. There's Pinterest and Instagram, etc. So if you have any questions, go for that. In the meantime, may God bless you. Stay safe. And I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.